back with the truck specialist. Let the operators handle this. Lieutenant Cole Mercer didn't lift his eyes from the map. His voice cut through the pine-scented slope, crisp as the mountain wind. A few of the men let smirks leak out. One man shook his head and muffled a laugh. Staff Sergeant Maya Raines said nothing. She lay stomach flat on a ridgeline of crumbling shale, her cheek welded to the stock of an M2010 enhanced sniper rifle. In her peripheral view, a line of Navy SEALs moved through the trees like iron-willed rumors, calm, controlled, confident. Down below, a narrow draw funneled into a meadow that only looked harmless to people who didn't know how violence hid in plain sight. Maya breathed with the slope. Slow in, slower out. At the bottom of each exhale, the world settled, and in the tiny hush between heartbeats, the shot belonged. Her grandfather's Tennessee draw drifted up like dust in the sunlight. If you can hear your pulse, girl, you're almost home. Through the scope, the meadow shifted. Shadows stiffened. A rock that shouldn't have gleamed. Spectre to Viking, recommend you angle 10 degrees west. Something's off in the open, she radioed, voice low. Static answered. Mercer's reply was clipped. Negative, Spectre. Maintain overwatch. We're good. The laughter returned. Light, careless. Boys before a football game. Maya shifted her windhold and watched the grass. It fluttered left then right. Not grass. Tripwire. She swallowed and fixed her reticle on the innocuous glint. The meadow detonated. The blast came up like a white hand, turning the pleasant bowl into a jagged mouth of smoke and splinters. Maya's face didn't flinch. She let her expression go still. Still faces survive. She hadn't been supposed to be there. Not officially. Attached from the 10th Mountain Division to a joint task force as Overwatch, B4 qualified, technically she was support for the SEAL platoon clearing a supply lane feeding a valley full of bad options. Support, in some men's minds, meant be quiet and stay near the vehicles. Maya had been taught quiet long before she wore the flag. At 4, she sat on her grandfather's porch steps in the Clark Range, listening to an old man who never bragged, rarely cursed, and only told stories when cicadas drowned out the parts he'd rather not say. He had a way of making the world small and safe in one line. Breathe with the land. The land wants you to live. He taught her to read wind without a flag, to hear the pause in a cruel voice right before the man made his mistake. By 12, she could place rounds into a knot the size of a bottle cap with a battered .22 and a fence post. By 16, she stole her father's old deer rifle and proved it did not shoot straight for everyone. She joined as an 11B and took every school the Army had to offer. Airborne Ranger assessment didn't stick. She got hurt and refused to lie about it, so she took the long route back through discipline, volunteering for every marksmanship detail until the door cracked open. Sniper school quieted the noise in her head. She finished near the top, not godly gifted, just stubborn. The real course, though, didn't print on any certificate. War zones that look like postcards until dusk, commanders too busy to be careful, and men who hadn't been taught a woman can hold a ridge alone and keep them alive. Maya learned names for all of it. She learned how to let it roll off without taking its weight inside. When Mercer's platoon got the job, Maya came with it. Mercer was young, squared, and sharp, a face that photographs well and remembers its symmetry. He had a tab, a trident patch, and a belief that competence had a single, recognizable shape, and that shape didn't include her. He didn't hate her. He simply didn't think he needed her. The men copied him like good men do. Chief Petty Officer Tom Brick grinned when he thought something was worth it. Petty Officer Eli Santos kept his sarcasm gentle. 2 augmentation guys kept to themselves. The Army attachments overcompensated by acting like she wasn't there. Maya didn't need their nods to do math. She watched the draw all morning, logging wind values, imagining where men would hide to make killing easy. When the meadow rose, when the ground felt like it might exhale, she already shifted. "Contact! Contact!" barked a voice. Radios filled. Dust folded into the draw like a dropped curtain. Maya found the first muzzle flash through tree line. A scatter of deadfall masked the shooter. Range 783 meters. She dialed half a mil and held another half for wind. "Send it," she whispered, only to the mountain. The rifle kicked, obedient and deliberate. The bullet was there before the boom reached her ears. The flash died like a switch turned off. "Who's shooting?" Eli demanded. "Overwatch." Brick said with the tired satisfaction of men who know competence when they hear it. Another flash deeper in the timber, trying to rake the team as they slid for cover. Maya tracked the source. Another round, the machine gun coughed and then went quiet. The engagement was not a single trap, it was a thesis. L-shaped intersecting fields, a high point for a PKM that would open the instant panic arrived. Maya saw the barrel ease through brush like an animal testing a snare. "Viking, you've got a PKM at your 1 o'clock elevated," she said calmly. "Shift base of fire 2 degrees left." Mercer swore. "We're pinned. Air support in 20. 20 minutes is training's kindness and a fight's eternity." Maya settled the PKM gunner in the middle of her reticle, but didn't shoot him. She put the round on the belt feed and the weapon choked with a sputter that sounded embarrassed. Brick laughed once, a bark. "Whoever you are up there, keep doing that." Maya didn't answer. She'd already moved to the next piece of the puzzle. Men move wrong when they think nobody watches. One crawled low with a tube on his back, an RPG, while his buddy kept his head careless. Maya timed their knee rhythm and sent a round that folded the gunner. The buddy froze, then went still. The SEALs reacted like professionals, focused, precise, angry now that shock had somewhere to be directed. Mercer marked targets. Brick's squad peeled and bounded with textbook speed. But the valley kept spitting out fighters who moved with a training that didn't belong to local militias. One figure moved with the confidence of instruction over instinct. He didn't scan. He checked and corrected others with hand signals from schools you can't find on the internet. She didn't shoot him. Not yet. She traced lines in the soil and saw the pattern, disturbed earth, subtle and easy to ignore. She breathed in and visualized the map pinning itself to the world. "Viking, step west puts you into secondary charges," she warned. "Hold your ground. Smoke east, then pivot on my mark." Mercer snapped, "Who's giving marks?" Brick, softer now, supplied the answer. Mercy's silence stretched one beat too long. Maya made the decision soldiers make when leaders hesitate. She took command of the moment. "Smoke east now." The valley turned white. Gunfire's rhythm faltered. The trained man in the tree line shifted, trying to regain angle. Maya watched him and let the mountain teach the bullet where to go. His chest collapsed like a splintered door. The fight bent. Apaches eventually answered, late in the language of panic and exactly on time for people who trade minutes like currency. 30-mil teeth carved the last of the firing line apart. The meadow stopped pretending and settled back to dirt. The platoon exfiltrated to line and trees, hard and fast. Maya took one final look through the scope and lifted her head. On a rock shelf in the distance, a single man stood watching the smoke. He held a case like a talisman, took 3 careful steps backward into timber, and disappeared. They met at a MATV under the pines, no ceremony, only the hum of the vehicle like a tired refrigerator. Mercer kept his helmet. Brick didn't. "Was that you on the ridge?" Mercer asked, words polite through a small slot. Maya slung her rifle, slid off a glove, and extended her hand. "Staff Sergeant Rain, Overwatch, 10th Mountain." Mercer hesitated half an inch, then shook. "Lieutenant Mercer, appreciate the support." Brick's mouth twitched close to a secret. "You jammed a PKM with a precision round. Never seen that." "Not a trick," Maya said, "just math." Santos, half swagger, half grateful, thanked her. "Ma'am, you saved my backside." She nodded. "We saved each other." They moved to a folding table with a laminate map under a faded sheet. Mercer rolled out a tracing overlay and pinned it. The draw's lines and arrows implied obedience from terrain that didn't care. They expected a small interdiction, he said. This was something else. Maya's analysis was clinical, professional work, not local tradecraft. She circled 2 positions and pointed out kill lanes laid to enfilade withdrawal routes, machine gun pits hidden under deadfall, and a belt path meant to chew up anyone smart enough to pivot west. "They built it on the assumption you'd pivot west," she said. "So what do we do?" Mercer asked. "Flip their assumptions," Maya replied. "Make them chase noise while we walk through empty ground." Brick liked the emptiness. They replotted, argued distances like professionals arguing politely with math until the map and the ground agreed. Maya mapped wind corridors that most soldiers never bothered to draw. Santos asked quick, careful questions. Mercer surprised her by listening like a man who needed to learn before the next hour tried to kill him. Discussion turned to the man on the shelf and his case. Brick said IED control kit. Santos said intel binder. Mercer said decoy. Maya said nothing until she could place the truth without ghosts. She pointed to a narrow switchback into timber and said, "They want your eyes here." They built kill positions assuming a leadership that hesitates before trusting Overwatch. Mercer accepted the weight. So we flip it. They moved at last light. The plan was audacious in the way good plans are. Simple to say, complicated where skill makes the difference. Maya would climb to a second Overwatch above a camouflaged cut in the ridgeline to the east. The platoon would false start west with noise, then slip through the cut while the watchers watched nothing. Mercer's last look was professional, almost respectful. "You good on water up there?" he asked. "Good," she said. "Any requests? When I tell you to move, move." "Copy that." Maya climbed in the dark to a ledge that promised shale, but delivered knife-edged limestone. Frost and stars blanketed everything. She set the rifle on a bagged rest, glassed the cut, and watched the light creep from blue to black and back again. Voices drifted up in a language she didn't know, but discipline is a dialect all soldiers understand. A makeshift OP tucked into stone like a barnacle. 2 in it. One watched, one whispered to a ground-level radio. She waited longer than men like Mercer think is reasonable, then shot the spotter first, because the spotter is the bridge between ambition and accuracy. The shooter twitched, swung left in a practiced search, and fell before he could re-index. "Overwatched a Viking. OP East is blind. Green to move," she said. Smoke rose from the west like second thoughts. The platoon shifted and poured through the cut as if gravity had tilted for them. A flashlight blinked on the far ridge, too quick for an amateur. She scanned higher and found a man on the rock shelf, the same figure. He cradled the case as if it were a fragile sermon. She set her reticle on the base of his throat and didn't pull. Brick whispered, "We're in." Maya watched the rock and the man with the case. He opened it. In it lay a sealed tube the size of a forearm, cradled under foam like something the world didn't deserve. Her teeth were suddenly sharp in her mouth. "Viking, you're compromised in spirit, if not in fact." The mountain seemed to hold its breath. Headlamps pinched to slits down below. Men moved like a silent river. The man on the shelf didn't hurry. He tapped the case twice, a ritual that meant nothing to some and everything to others. He lifted the tube like someone honoring a dangerous relic and slid it back into foam. Inside the bunker, the radios changed to a different quiet. The hush of men who have seen something they did not want to see. Brick, Mercer, Santos moved through the opening with care and found racks of weapons, crates with Cyrillic stencils, and in the center containment units, stamped with a biological hazard sign. "Not weapons," Brick murmured. "Plague," Santos breathed. Maya stayed on the ridge, eyes hard. In the distance, she saw him again, Morozov, scarred, sparrow tattoo on the forearm, case in hand. Their eyes met across 900 meters of smoke and history. For the first time she understood, this was not just a mission. This was a bloodline feud handed down across maps and decades. The exfil turned. Morozov had planned perfectly. 3 trucks opened disciplined, overlapping fire as they tried to withdraw. Seals hit the dirt. Brick cursed. Santos called for ammo. Mercer's voice kept panic from taking breath. Maya worked the field. RPG gunner down. PKM teams neutralized. The ambush bent. Then she saw Morozov himself, wounded but orchestrating the fight, case across his back. The prize. She squeezed the shot. At the last moment he shifted and the round tore through shoulder instead of chest. He staggered. The case burst open, vials glinting in the firelight. Men scrambled as Morozov and the case were shoved into the trucks. They roared away, smoke swallowing them. The bunker charges blew and the valley spat a plume of dust into the air. The cache had escaped. The team withdrew under a patchy cover, adrenaline still making their faces pale. Maya climbed down to meet them. For once Mercer had no words, only a nod and a salute. The men followed, respect palpable, gooseflesh rising on skin that had known mockery just the night before. Maya did not return the salute. She offered a single nod. Respect, she believed, should be earned, not demanded. Back at the forward operating base, the debrief was grim. Morozov had fled with a sample. The biological threat remained alive. Yet the story, they said, wasn't only about vials. It was about the woman who'd been told to stay with vehicles and had instead held a ridge alone and saved a platoon. It was about legacy, not medals or speeches. but soft, stubborn lessons passed by old men on porches. Breathe with the land. The shot lives between heartbeats. That night, Maya sat outside the barracks with her rifle across her knees, staring at the stars. Brick sat with her, Santos too. Mercer came later, awkward but present. "You're not support," he said finally. "You're why we're breathing."